The Girl in the Woods. The man's name was Daniel Cole. He was 32 years old, quiet by nature and tired of city life. After years of noise, traffic, and fake smiles, Daniel sold everything and moved deep into the forest. He bought a small wooden cabin, far away from any neighbors. He wanted peace, silence, a fresh start. But the forest wasn't silent. Every full moon, Daniel heard strange sounds at night. Howling, scratching, growling. It always came from the woods behind his cabin. Sometimes he would find broken branches or claw marks on trees the next morning. Once he saw something move fast and low to the ground, but when he grabbed a flashlight, it was gone. He told himself it was just animals. Wolves, maybe. Or his imagination. The city had made him paranoid, he thought. He didn't want to be afraid of the forest. He came here to heal. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a cold, clear night. The moon was full, bright, and white like a giant eye in the sky. Daniel sat by the fire reading an old book and drinking tea. Outside, the forest was quiet, too quiet. And then he heard it. A loud thump. It came from the porch. Daniel froze. He waited. Another thump. This time, it was closer. He stood slowly, picked up a small axe he kept near the fireplace and tiptoed to the window. That's when he saw her. A girl. She was standing on the edge of the porch, staring at him through the glass. She looked around 17, maybe 18. She had long black hair tangled with leaves, pale skin smudged with dirt, and wild eyes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. She wore no shoes, and her clothes were torn like she'd been running for miles. Daniel opened the door a little. "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't answer. He stepped outside slowly. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Still, she said nothing. She just stared. Her chest moved with fast, sharp breaths. Her fingers twitched like she was ready to run or attack. But she didn't move. Suddenly, a growl echoed from the trees behind her. Daniel turned his head sharply. That's when it came out. A large wild boar with long tusks, charging straight at him. He didn't have time to move. The creature was fast, angry and big. He raised his axe, but he knew he wouldn't make it in time. Then something blurred past him. The girl. She jumped in front of the boar, grabbed a broken branch from the ground, and slammed it into the animal's side. The boar screamed and turned to attack her instead. But she moved with speed that wasn't normal. She dodged, rolled, and struck again. She fought like she'd done it 100 times. Daniel stood frozen, shocked. In a final move, the girl jumped on the boar's back and shoved the stick deep into its neck. The animal fell with a heavy thud. It twitched, then went still. Silence. Returned to the forest. Daniel stared at the girl, eyes wide. She looked at him. Those glowing eyes full of something ancient, something powerful. She was breathing hard, blood on her arms, her hair wild in the wind. Then, without a word, she ran back into the trees and disappeared into the darkness. Daniel didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he went outside. The boar's body was gone. No blood, no tracks, nothing. Only a single muddy footprint remained on the porch, small, barefoot, human. He stood there for a long time, thinking. Who was she? Why didn't she speak? And more importantly, why did she protect him? Who is she? The forest was never quiet after that night. Even when the wind was still, even when the birds chirped and the sky was blue, Daniel felt watched. It wasn't a scary feeling, not quite. But it wasn't peaceful either. Like eyes followed him through the leaves. Like footsteps stayed just behind his own, never loud enough to be certain, but never far enough to ignore. He had questions. Too many questions. Who was that girl? Where had she come from? How did she take down a wild boar barehanded with nothing but a stick? And why didn't she speak? Was she hurt? Was she dangerous? He started walking deeper into the woods every day, trying to find answers. He left out food, fruits, bread, even bottled water, on a flat rock about 50 feet from the cabin. He left clothes too, a warm hoodie, a pair of socks, some gloves, all things he thought she might need. Each morning, the things were gone. No footprints, no thank you note, nothing, just gone. As if the forest itself had swallowed them. Daniel tried setting up cameras, cheap trail cams he bought online. He tied them to trees, aimed them at the rock, at the woods beyond. He checked the footage every morning, and every time, blank, static. Or the power cut out completely the moment the moon was full. Once one of the cameras was ripped from the tree. The lens shattered, the battery clawed open, like something had attacked it, or someone didn't want to be seen. Weeks passed. Every full moon she returned. She never came inside, never knocked. But Daniel would feel her. Some nights he'd hear light scratching outside. Other nights just a soft thud on the porch like she was sitting there. He started talking through the door. "I know you're there," he'd say gently. "You saved my life. I just want to understand." Silence. Still, she listened. He could feel it, and then came the night of the storm. Heavy rain slammed the trees. Thunder roared above like the sky itself was splitting open. Daniel stood at the window staring out into the darkness. The woods were a wall of shadows and falling water. Suddenly he saw her again, soaked, barefoot, shivering. She stood at the edge of the tree line, her long hair hanging in wet strands over her face. He opened the door wide. "Come in, please, it's freezing." She took one step forward and stopped, her eyes locked onto something behind him. Snap, a loud branch broke in the woods. Daniel turned quickly. 3 glowing eyes blinked from the trees. Low growls echoed. Then, movement, fast, heavy. Not one, but 2 wolves, larger than any he'd ever seen, stepped into view. They weren't like normal wolves. Their fur was black as midnight, eyes red and glowing, bodies pulsing with unnatural energy. They looked like monsters from an old nightmare, and they were coming straight for him. He backed into the cabin. "Oh no. No. Then she ran. "The girl!" She charged past him faster than human, faster than thought. With a roar, she leapt at the first beast, slamming it to the ground. The second lunged, but she rolled under it, pulled something shiny from her clothes, a silver blade, and slashed its leg. The wolves howled. One bit her arm. She screamed but didn't stop. Daniel stood frozen. He wanted to help, but he was just a man with a fire poker. Within minutes, it was over. The wolves fled, injured and whimpering, back into the trees. She stood in the rain, breathing heavily, one hand clutching her bleeding shoulder. Daniel stepped outside. "You're hurt. Please let me help." She looked at him. Eyes, soft, tired, broken, afraid. Then she ran again, vanished into the woods like a shadow. The next morning, Daniel found something strange on the flat rock where he always left supplies. Not food this time. A symbol. It was drawn in the mud with a finger, a circle, crossed with 3 lines like a moon cut into pieces. He stared at it for a long time. He had seen this before, in a dream. Weeks ago, when he first moved into the cabin, he'd had a nightmare. In it, the forest had been on fire. A girl, with glowing eyes, stood at the edge, her hand outstretched, trying to pull him away. Behind her, that same symbol burned in the sky. He hadn't thought about the dream since then. But now, he was starting to wonder if it wasn't a dream at all. That night, Daniel searched the internet for hours. Forest myths, moon legends, stories of wolf girls and curses. Most were nonsense. Some spoke of old spirits, wild protectors of the land who watched over chosen people, especially those with ancient bloodlines. That's when he found something that made his skin crawl. An old article. A logging company had tried to cut down part of the forest 20 years ago. Their machines stopped working during the full moon. 2 workers went missing. The others reported a pale, barefoot girl staring at them from the trees. They shut down the project. The forest was left alone. Daniel leaned back in his chair, heart pounding. Who is she? Is she protecting the woods? Or him? And more terrifying than anything else, what if she can't speak? Because speaking would break something much bigger. The transformation. Daniel couldn't sleep anymore. Not after what he saw. Not after the fight, the howl, the wounds, and not after the strange symbol appeared near his cabin, the same one from his dreams. For days, he wandered the woods restlessly, leaving food, bandages, warm clothes. But the girl didn't return, not even on the next full moon. He began to wonder, had she been hurt too badly? Had she left the forest? Or was someone keeping her away? But then, something changed. One cold night just after midnight, Daniel woke up gasping, not from a nightmare, from a sound, a low thump, followed by soft scratching on the wooden porch. The same sounds he'd heard before, but this time they felt slower, weaker, almost sad. He got up carefully, not turning on the lights. He didn't want to scare her away. He opened the door slowly. There, she was, the girl, sitting curled up in the corner of the porch, soaked from dew, mud on her knees, one arm still wrapped in an old shirt he'd left her. Her eyes, tired and yellow in the moonlight, looked straight into his. He didn't say anything. This time he just stepped back, leaving the door open. She hesitated, then crawled forward, like a wounded animal unsure of kindness. She entered, quietly. Slowly. She didn't speak, but she didn't run either. Daniel led her to the couch. He pointed to a blanket. She sat. Her breathing was shaky, as if she hadn't rested in weeks. He brought her soup, hot, thick, and simple. She ate it, hands trembling. He tried not to cry. For the first time in months, he wasn't alone, and neither was she. That night, she fell, asleep on his couch, like she belonged there. The next morning, Daniel did something different. He didn't search for signs or chase stories. He simply talked. He sat beside her on the porch and told her everything. About the city, the pain, the loneliness, why he left, why the quiet scared him now, how she had become the only person he waited for every month. She listened, always silent, but sometimes she blinked slowly. Other times her shoulders tensed when he mentioned certain words, like moon, hunt, or howl. Daniel noticed everything, but that night something happened he didn't expect. She got up from the couch, quiet, calm, and walked straight to his bookshelf. She didn't speak. She simply pulled out a notebook, one of Daniel's old sketchbooks. She tore a page, sat down, and drew. A tree, large and twisted, then a moon behind it, then a girl standing under it, with glowing eyes. Next to her, a cabin. His cabin. Daniel stared. "That's you." She nodded. Then on the same paper, she drew something else. A wolf. Huge, covered in strange marks. Standing, in the same place where the girl was before. Same moon, same tree, same eyes. He pointed slowly. "That's you too, isn't it?" She didn't move, but her eyes began to glisten. She folded the paper, slipped it onto the table, and walked to the door. Before she stepped out, she finally turned around, and for the first time, she spoke. Soft, almost broken. "Don't. Watch." Then she left. Daniel didn't sleep. He couldn't. He sat by the window with a flashlight and journal, heart racing. Why did she say that? Don't watch what? The full moon was just starting to rise. Outside, the forest groaned. Branches moved when there was no wind. Shadows twisted on the trees. Then he heard it. A scream. Not human. Not animal. Something in between. He ran to the porch. Stopped. Listened. Another scream. And then a roar. He couldn't help himself. He needed to know the truth. He grabbed his old trail camera, the one that had been torn down last time. He held, It tightened and ran into the woods, feet crunching dry leaves, heart thudding like a drum. He didn't go far, just to the flat stone where he used to leave food. He set the camera down behind a log, quiet, hidden, then backed away, far enough not to be seen, close enough to record. And he waited. The forest held its breath. Then from the mist, she appeared, but not as a girl. She walked on two legs, tall, half human, half beast, muscles tensed, hands clawed. Long black fur covered her body, but the eyes were the same, glowing, yellow, sad. She knelt beside the stone, sniffed, scratched something into the dirt. Then she threw her head back and howled, loud, echoing, heartbreaking. Daniel stood frozen. Every hair on his neck stood up. Then, she turned toward the camera. She stared straight at it and walked forward. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Then, when she was inches from the lens, she raised a claw and drew the moon symbol again on the bark of a tree. Then she whispered something soft, almost like wind. Protect you. Crack. The screen went black. Daniel sat by the fire the rest of the night. He didn't sleep. He didn't cry. He just stared into the flames. She wasn't just a girl. She wasn't just a wolf. She was both. And she had been coming here every month not to scare him, but to protect him. From what? He didn't know yet. But now one thing was very clear. She trusted him enough to show him her secret. And that meant one terrifying thing. Whatever she was protecting him from was coming closer. The mark on the tree. Daniel didn't leave the cabin for 3 days. Not because he was scared of the girl, but because of what she might be protecting him from. The footage from the trail, camera haunted him, the way she moved, the way she spoke, and most of all, the symbol she carved on the tree. He couldn't stop thinking about it. It wasn't just a drawing. It looked ancient, like something with meaning, something forgotten on. The 4th day, Daniel finally grabbed his backpack and went back into the woods. This time not to search for her, but to find the tree, the one with the symbol. He followed the trail from memory, carefully watching his steps, marking each tree with chalk so he wouldn't get lost. After an hour of walking, he found it. Tall, crooked oak, blackened near the base like it had been struck by lightning long ago, and there, scratched into the bark, was the moon symbol. But now, it was glowing faintly. Not white. Blue. Daniel stepped closer. The air around the tree felt cold, even though it was summer. His breath turned to mist. His fingers tingled. When he reached out to touch it, he heard whispers, not from the forest, not from behind him, from inside the tree. He pulled his hand back, heart racing. The whispers stopped. He looked around. Nothing moved. Then he noticed something else. Tiny claw marks near the base of the tree. Old. Faded. Like something had been coming here for years. He dropped to his knees and brushed away the leaves and dirt. Underneath, carved into the roots, were more symbols. Not just the moon. There were circles, slashes, and a symbol that looked like an eye crossed out. He took pictures with his phone, recorded everything, then carefully backed away. But as he turned to leave, a growl stopped him. In his tracks, it wasn't her, it was deeper, rougher, like something bigger. Daniel froze. From the bushes behind the tree, something moved. Slow. Heavy. He held his breath and reached into his pack for his flashlight. He clicked it on, aimed it at the sound. Eyes. Not hers. Not yellow. These were red, and full of hate. The creature stepped out. Huge. Mangled. Half wolf, half rotted. Its body was covered in scars. One of its arms dragged behind it, twisted and broken. But the worst part was its face, missing chunks, jaw split, as if it had once been human. And then destroyed. Daniel turned and ran. It chased him. He didn't look back. Branches tore at his clothes. Roots tripped his feet. He fell once, rolled but didn't stop. He could hear it crashing behind him, snarling, hissing. Something told him this wasn't a random attack. It had followed his scent. It had been watching, waiting. Just before the cabin came into view, Daniel tripped again, this time hard. He hit the ground, twisted his ankle, and screamed. The creature was close now. He could smell it, burnt fur and rotting flesh. He crawled, dragging himself to a fallen tree near the trail. Then, from the shadows, she appeared. The girl, the werewolf, his protector. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever before. But her body looked different now. Stronger, taller. Her arms were covered in strange markings, like runic tattoos that pulsed with blue light. She didn't speak. She didn't growl. She charged. The two creatures collided like thunder. Fur flew. Blood splashed across the leaves. Daniel crawled behind a log and watched in horror and awe as they fought. The creature was brutal, strong and fast, but she was smarter. She used the trees, the shadows. She struck, vanished, and struck again. Finally, she tackled it into the roots of the glowing tree. There was a blinding flash of blue light, and the creature screamed. Then, it went silent. When Daniel opened his eyes, she was standing over its body, breathing hard, shaking. Then, she fell. Daniel carried her back to the cabin. She was heavy, bleeding, her wolf form shrinking slowly as the moon dipped below the trees. By the time he reached the porch, she was almost human again. He wrapped her wounds, cleaned the blood, sat by her side all night. When morning came, her eyes fluttered open. She stared at him, weak but alive. He smiled. "You saved me again," she whispered, barely audible. "Too soon. They're waking." "The others?" Daniel leaned closer. "What others?" She looked at him, this time with fear. "They want the mark. The one on you." He blinked. "On me?" She slowly lifted his hand, and there, burned into his wrist, was the glowing moon symbol. It hadn't been there the day before. Daniel stared in horror. "What does this mean?" She didn't answer. She closed her eyes and whispered one word. "Chosen." The chosen mark. Daniel stared at the glowing moon symbol on his wrist. It didn't feel like a tattoo. It wasn't ink. It was something alive. It pulsed softly, like a slow heartbeat, matching the rhythm of the girl lying on his couch. She was still unconscious, bruised, bloody, silent again. But before passing out, she had said just one word. Chosen. Daniel didn't know what it meant. But deep down, something inside him had changed. He could feel it. He wasn't just living in the woods anymore. He was now part of the woods, and whatever had marked him wasn't done yet. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The wind outside was louder than usual. The trees creaked. Something heavy moved through the dark. Not animals. Not the same creature from before. This was different. Bigger, and it wasn't coming toward his cabin. It was circling it. He looked out the window. Nothing. Then he checked the cameras. The trail. Cam from the edge of the forest had gone static, just like before the last attack. His heart pounded. He turned to check the girl. She was sitting up, awake, watching him. "You need to leave," she said. Her voice was hoarse, weak. Daniel shook his head. Not without answers. She looked down at his wrist. "It chose you. I don't know why." "What is it?" She hesitated. Then slowly, she spoke. "There was a war. Long ago. Between creatures. Like me and others. Dark ones. Twisted by rage." She looked out the window. "We called them the Broken." Daniel swallowed. "Like the one you killed?" She nodded. "They were part of us once. But something happened. Something corrupted them, made them forget who they were. Now, they hunt anything marked by the moon. Daniel looked at the glowing symbol. So now they'll hunt me? Her eyes met his. They already are. She told him more that night. Her name was Lyra. She had been watching over the forest since she was a child, a guardian, born from an ancient bloodline. Every full moon she changed, not by choice, but by duty. Her mother had done it before her grandmother before that. It was their curse, and their gift. But now, something had gone wrong. More and more of her kind were vanishing. Some were turning into the broken, the rest were being hunted. I thought I was the last, she said, until the mark appeared on you. Daniel frowned. What does the mark mean? Lyra stood, slowly. She moved to the fireplace, pulled back a loose brick and revealed a hidden piece of old parchment. She handed it to him. It showed a circle of wolves drawn around a glowing moon. In the center, a human figure with a mark on his wrist. A name was written in faded ink. The moon-bound one. He comes once every century, she whispered. When the balance is breaking, he cannot turn, he cannot run, but he sees what others can't. Daniel felt cold. He wasn't just marked, he was chosen for something much bigger. Suddenly, all the lights in the cabin flickered, then went out. Darkness. Silence. Then, howling. Not one voice, many. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and moved to the window. Outside, in the trees, red eyes were watching. Dozens. Lyra stepped beside him. They found you. They prepared quickly. Lyra handed him a silver-bladed axe from under the floorboards. It won't kill them, but it will slow them. Daniel looked at her. You're not fully healed. I don't need to be, she said, shifting into her half-wolf form. They'll come for you. I'll keep them away. But she was wrong. They didn't wait. They attacked. The walls shook. The windows cracked. One creature leapt through the roof. Daniel swung the axe and cut deep into its shoulder. It screamed and vanished in smoke. Another burst through the door. Lyra tackled it before. It reached Daniel. More came. The cabin burned. Daniel and Lyra fought side by side. Sweat, blood, and fire all around them, and then everything stopped. A shadow stepped through the smoke. Taller than the rest, stronger, eyes like dying stars. It looked directly at Daniel. Then it spoke, not in growls, but in words. You carry the mark. Return it, or be unmade. Daniel raised his axe. The creature smiled. You think you're chosen? You think the mark is a blessing? He stepped forward, slowly. It's a key, and once it unlocks, nothing will stop us. Before Daniel could move, the creature reached out and touched the mark on his wrist. A blast of white-blue light exploded from his body, knocking everyone to the ground. When Daniel opened his eyes, the cabin was gone. The forest was burning, and Lyra was on the ground, unmoving. He crawled to her. Lyra, get up. She opened one eye. It's beginning. What is? She pointed behind him. Daniel turned. There, floating above the burning trees, was a second moon. Smaller, cracked, bleeding red light, and Daniel suddenly understood. The war wasn't coming. It had already started. 2 moons. The sky above the burning forest had changed. Daniel stared at the second moon. It wasn't normal. It was cracked, bleeding light like red smoke across the stars. And it moved, not slowly like the real moon, but like something alive, watching. The creatures had stopped attacking. They stood still, silent, frozen in place. Even the tall shadow creature, the one that spoke, was kneeling now, its head bowed to the red moon. Daniel turned to Lyra, still weak on the ground. What is that? He asked. Another moon? She shook her head. No, she whispered. It's not a moon, it's a gate. Lyra struggled to sit up, her breath short. That red light, It's a crack between worlds, she said. When too much darkness gathers in our world, it breaks through. That thing in the sky, it's where they come from. Daniel looked again at the broken red moon. A gate between worlds? His mind was spinning. So, they're not just monsters, he said. They're invaders? Lyra nodded. They were once like us, changed by pain, betrayed by one of their own. Now they only serve the gate. The broken are just the beginning. Daniel looked at the glowing mark on his wrist. The center was changing. It had begun to open like an eye, watching back at the sky. Suddenly, a whisper touched his mind. Not a sound, not a voice, a feeling. Come closer. We remember you. Daniel staggered back. What the hell was that? He asked, panic rising. Lyra looked at him sharply. It spoke to you? He nodded, breathing hard. She looked horrified. That shouldn't be possible. Later that night, they hid in the cave near the old riverbed. Lyra treated his wounds while the red glow filled the sky. The forest was no longer safe. It belonged to them now. Daniel stared at his wrist again. Why me? He asked. Why was I chosen? Lyra didn't answer at first. Then she pulled out an old leather journal from her satchel. It looked ancient, torn, burned at the edges. She flipped through the pages until she found a sketch. A man standing in fire, holding a glowing wrist, surrounded by 2 moons in the sky. This is the old prophecy, she said. It was passed down through my bloodline. The moon-bound one, he is always born and from both worlds. Daniel frowned. Both worlds? She looked at him carefully. Your mother, she said. Do you know where she came from? Daniel paused. She died when I was 3. My father never talked about her. Lyra nodded. Then you don't know, she whispered. She wasn't human. A sharp silence filled the cave. Daniel felt cold. What are you saying? She was like me, Lyra said, one of the old ones, a guardian. But she broke the law. She fell in love with a human, your father, and she bore you, a child of both worlds. Daniel backed away. No, that's not possible. It is, she said. That's why the mark appeared. The blood in your veins. It answers the moon. Both moons. And now, so, do they? Daniel stepped outside the cave. The forest was glowing faint red now, and in the distance he could hear chanting, like voices carried by wind. But it wasn't English, or any human tongue. It sounded ancient. In his head it made sense, he could understand it. The door is open, the key walks the earth. Let the old moon fall, and the red rise in full. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. The voice was stronger, now inside him. Not a whisper, a command. Come home. Lyra ran to him. Fight it! Don't let it in! I can hear them, Daniel said, shaking. They know my name. She pulled him close. You are not them, she said. You are more than both. You must choose. That night, Daniel had a dream. In the dream, he stood between 2 doors. One was silver, glowing soft white light. The other was red, cracked open, leaking shadows and screams. Inside the red door, he saw himself, but not as he was. Changed, clawed, bleeding red eyes. Pale skin, a smile too wide, a monster. The red Daniel reached out. Stop running. We are stronger together. Daniel backed away. The white door was fading. He had to make a choice, and when he did, he woke up. It was morning, but the sky was still dark. The red moon was larger, closer. Lyra was already packing. They're coming again, she said. We have one chance. What chance? Daniel asked. She looked at the map. There's a place deep in the forest, an old altar. Before my kind turned into wolves, we were something else. That altar is where the first gate was sealed. And you want to go there? She nodded. If you touch the altar with your mark, it might close the gate. But it could also, she didn't finish. Daniel understood. It could kill him, or worse. But he stood, and said only one word. Let's go. As they walked toward the altar, creatures followed. Not attacking, just watching, like they were escorting him, waiting to see what he would choose. And above them in the sky the red moon cracked again, wider, almost fully open. A shape was forming in it. Something was coming through. The gatewalker. The forest was no longer quiet. Every tree whispered. Every wind carried a name. Daniel. He and Lyra moved fast, deeper into the heart of the woods. The trees looked different here, twisted, older, as if they had seen wars no human had ever known. The red moon above pulsed like a beating heart. The sky cracked again. Something was coming through. They reached the altar just before midnight. It stood in a clearing of black stone, surrounded by broken pillars and bones half buried. In the moss, the air felt thick like breathing underwater. Daniel stepped closer. His wrist mark was glowing bright now, the center spinning like a clock, faster and faster. This is it, Lyra said, her voice shaking. Touch the altar. Seal the gate. Or... She didn't say it. She didn't have to. He already knew. He failed. The gate would open forever. As Daniel placed his hand on the altar, time stopped. The world around him vanished. No trees, no Lyra, no sky, only a black space filled with stars and shifting shadows. Then, something appeared, a giant form, not fully solid, a mix of smoke, bone, and light. It looked down at him with eyes like galaxies. We remember you. Daniel stared. What are you? We are the first. The forgotten. The gate is our prison. And our voice. You are our blood. Our key. You opened the crack. I didn't mean to, he said. Yet you did. And now you must choose. The creature waved a long hand. Two paths appeared before Daniel. One path showed earth, peaceful, green, shining with life. But the altar in that vision was broken and Daniel was missing. He was gone. The other path showed fire, the red moon full in the sky, cities burning, monsters walking among men, and Daniel standing at the center, changed, glowing with red light, worshipped, feared. You want me to become that? He asked. No. We offer you the truth. You are not fully human. You were never meant to live their small lives. Come to us, walk the gate, become what you are. Daniel looked away, and then he heard a voice, faint, but real. Lyra, calling his name. Back in the forest, Lyra was shouting. The creatures had returned, dozens of them, surrounding the altar. Some crawled, some floated. All had red eyes and stretched mouths. One stepped forward, tall, sharp, wearing black smoke as a robe, the same shadow creature from before. Your gatewalker has been called, it said in a dry voice. He will not return. Lyra stood between them and the altar, baring her fangs, claws out. Her silver eyes glowed. He's stronger than you think. The shadow creature tilted its head. Then why is he afraid? Inside the void, Daniel looked at both paths again. He thought about his quiet cabin, about the firewood, the silence. He thought about the first time he saw Lyra, dirty, barefoot, silent, standing in the moonlight. She didn't need to save him back then, but she did, and kept doing it again and again, because some part of her believed there was good in him. He looked at the creature again. No, Daniel said. You deny what you are? I'm not just what I was born from. I'm what I choose to be. He turned, faced the altar, and slammed his marked hand down with all his strength. A light exploded. The ground split open. The forest roared. The creatures screamed as fire shot from the altar, blasting into the sky. The red moon cracked, then shattered. The sky turned white, and the gate closed. Daniel fell backward unconscious. When he woke up, the sun was rising. The creatures were gone. So was the altar. It had turned into dust. Lyra sat beside him, bandaging his hand. Her face was pale, eyes tired, but she smiled. "You came back." "Barely," he said, wincing. "What did you see?" she asked. He looked up at the sky. "One world begging me to destroy the other." "And you refused?" He nodded. "They wanted me to become something I hate. I chose this world instead." Lyra helped him sit up. "You're not just human," she said, "and you're not like me either." Daniel smiled weakly. "Then what am I?" She looked at the rising sun. The Gatewalker, the first to choose Earth over power. Weeks passed. The forest healed. The red glow never returned. But Daniel knew something had changed in him. He could still feel the mark on his wrist, even though it had faded. And sometimes when the moon rose, he could still hear whispers. But now, they were quiet, respectful, afraid. One night Lyra came to his cabin, no longer wild, no longer silent. She sat beside him on the porch, watching the stars. "What happens now?" he asked. She looked at him and said, "We wait." "For what?" "For the next Gatewalker." Daniel looked out at the forest, silent, peaceful, for now. But deep down he knew this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The end.